Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 948A, and today's date is April 18th, 2016, and the title of the episode is Confirmed. Fed's QE plan was to push stocks higher, not help the U.S. economy. Let's get right into the economic collapse financial news. Now, we realize that the U.S. government cannot sustain the debt level that they have, and they don't have the revenue coming into the government. This is why we see Obamacare. This is why we see FATCA. This is why they want a carbon tax. This is why they're continually pushing more and more taxes on the people. Because what they're trying to do is they're trying to keep the system propped up as long as they possibly can, and they're trying to cut costs anywhere they possibly can. Now, when I say cut costs, I don't mean they're going to be cutting the money flowing to other governments, the money flowing to themselves. What I mean by that is they're going to be cutting the money flowing to the people of the U.S. because that's where they always cut first. I mean, when the government shut down, what did they do? They shut down the public areas, the monuments, and they paid people to stand guard over it. I mean, really think about what they did. It made no sense. Instead of maybe cutting all the money that is flowing to Israel, all the money that is flowing to Saudi Arabia, all the money that is flowing to the Middle Eastern countries. Instead, they decided to say, hey, people, if you don't do what we say, look what's going to happen here in the United States. Well, they're continuing with this because we can see right now, and we know the U.S. government is completely broke. And if it used accrual accounting instead of cash accounting, it would be much, much worse, because the future liabilities would be then shown. Knowing this, government officials are now working tirelessly around the clock to figure out how they can reduce spending. And guess what? They figured out a way to do this. But it's going to hit the people of the United States. It always does. It never hits anything else but that. So, a popular tool that families use to help boost retirement income, it's known as the file and suspend. And people use this for Social Security payments. And this will be taken away on April 29th of this year, courtesy of the Bipartisan Budget Act of 2015. The file and suspend is essentially a way for one person who is eligible to file for his or her retirement benefits to file, but delay getting them until the age 70, in return for an 8% per annum credit. Once the benefits are then filed for, however, that person's spouse can file for spousal benefits and begin to receive those right away, thus increasing income to the couple. One final element of the strategy is that if the higher income earner dies, the spouse can now receive the full benefits, including that 8% per year credit amount earned by delaying, which significantly increases the income of the surviving partner. And we see right now, they're going to get rid of that. So the everyday hardworking American who's been taking their hard-earned money, putting it into Social Security, they're going to take the hit, instead of the government looking in other areas to cut down on expenses. I mean, like Obama, his vacation costs right now, they now exceed $70 million. All the money that is loaned out to all foreign governments, or actually aid that is given to foreign governments, is in the billions. But instead, they went internal to hurt the people of the United States. It's just amazing how this government no longer works for the people whatsoever. Now, we know last week, Deutsche Bank, they were exposed as manipulating gold and silver. There were other banks that were implicated in this. And the question is this a sideshow to make everyone say, okay, look, it was these banks, they were manipulating the gold, they were manipulating the silver, nothing else to see here. They're going to name a couple other banks, and guess what? It's going to be just like LIBOR. Everyone forgets about it, not a big deal. And it feels like that this is what it's all about, because they don't want it leading back to the central banks. Because the central banks, they are the ones that are continually manipulating this full force. They're the ones who are the real perpetrators of the manipulation of gold and silver. And it looks like they're using these smaller banks as scapegoats, saying, okay, I don't mean Deutsche Bank is small, but I'm saying these insignificant banks right now to say, okay, listen, we'll use them as a scapegoat. This one is a scapegoat, and all eyes will be off the central banks, and everyone will be satisfied that, yes, we've stopped it. But guess what? Nothing's going to change because the central bank is continually manipulating the gold and silver. Now, this does show that gold and silver was manipulated and still is being manipulated, but are we going to see real changes? I don't think so. Now, the Fed is out there and they're admitting that, yes, QE was used for the purpose of pushing stocks up. Now, former Federal Reserve Chairman Alan Greenspan, he said, yeah, quantitative easing did what it was supposed to do. It brought the stock prices up, it pushed the stock market up, and that's it. It was never intended to fix anything fundamentally. It was never intended to help the everyday person. It was never intended to help the economy. It was never intended for anything like that except one thing. QE was there to take wealth from the savers, take wealth from the everyday person, and transfer it to a select few people. That's all this was about. And it's still going on today. Because why are they doing this? Because this is the end game. This is the destruction of the economy. And they know this. This is why the wealthy are out there building underground bunkers. This is why the wealthy are building runways and having these homes built way out in nowhere land so they can fly their planes and be away from the riots, the inflation, the anarchy inside of these countries. Now, we see Obamacare. This entire thing is crashing very, very quickly. United Health, as we mentioned before, said they're going to be closing their insurance exchanges in many different states. And we see Michigan and Oklahoma, they just added. So we see right now that they're out of Alabama, Louisiana, Tennessee, Michigan, Oklahoma, and they're continually doing this. And what we're starting to see right now is that Obamacare is taking a very big hit. A lot of the other insurance companies are saying, you know something, this is not profitable at this point. We're going to have to take a very hard look at what's going on here. And we see why all this is happening, because think about it. Right now, people are saying, okay, for my family, I can spend $1,200 a month or $1,100 a month or $1,000 a month or $800 a month for this insurance, but I still have to pay out of pocket first because of the deductible, or I can take the penalty. Maybe it's $80 every single month. Maybe it's $70. Maybe it's $90. It is a lot cheaper to take the penalty. Now, of course, as we know, the penalty is there to force everyone into health care. And it seems at this point that the people are completely tapped out. They don't have the money to support this system. This was not affordable care for everyday people. As we can see, since Obamacare came into power, guess what happened? Everything went through the roof. And it's more expensive today than before Obamacare. So who's benefiting from all this? Not the people as usual. Now we see that Russia and the OPEC countries were bargaining back and forth to put a freeze on the oil production. And it looks like right now that completely fell apart. And Venezuela is out there and they are saying that the United States is responsible for this entire thing going down the drain. They said they sabotaged the deal. They spoke to Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia all of a sudden decided they didn't agree with this, and the whole deal went down the tubes because they did have an agreement up to like the last minute. And then all of a sudden, Saudi Arabia came out, and it seems that they caved to the pressure of the United States, and the deal was completely off. Because the United States right now needs these oil prices to be very, very low. One, it creates a huge glut of oil. And during war, you want to fill up your tanks very, very cheaply and keep it in storage. 2, companies with that are non-profitable right now, that don't have the sales, that are teetering on disaster, lower oil prices help these companies. Airlines, delivery, shipping, all this type of stuff. It helps them in production. The lower prices help the companies. Another reason, putting a lot of pressure on Iran, putting a lot of pressure on Russia, trying to destroy the economy of Russia. And at this point, we see that if oil prices went right back up, the economy here in the United States most likely would have folded a lot sooner. So you can see there are many different reasons why they're doing this. There's many different reasons why they need to continually do this, because otherwise the entire system would completely fall apart. And we can see at this point that we are getting very close to this system falling apart. I know the stock market hit all-time new highs. We're back up to 18,000. Gold is holding steady. But what we're seeing right now is the last hurrah. People are so off guard right now. And we saw this back in September, August, September, back in 2008. They saw this prior to the 1929 crash, where they said, oh, hey, everything's okay. I don't have anything, I don't need to worry anymore. This is a complete and utter illusion. Remember, the wealthy, for 11 weeks in a row, they are selling their stocks. The reason why the market is up so high is so people can get out, and they get out with a profit. This is why they're pushing it up so high. They're confusing what's really going on here. The wealthy are getting out. They want other retailers to come in and say, hey, look, the market's still going back up. I better start buying. I better be long. And I'm telling you right now, I don't think that this rally is going to keep up. I think it's going to start to drop off as we move into the next month. And it's going to get worse and worse, because we saw this back in 2008. We saw this back in 1929. We saw this back in 2001. It's the same exact patterns. It's an illusion, just like the entire economy right now. The entire economy, all the economic indicators are showing the complete and opposite of what the United States government central bankers are trying to tell us. Actually, throughout the world, throughout Europe, South America, it is a complete disaster. There has been no improvement whatsoever since 2008. They didn't bring down unemployment back to, 4, 5, 6% in Europe. It's still at all-time highs. Here in the United States, the only way they were able to get this down was manipulation, by changing the calculation. Well, they changed the calculation almost to everything. And this is why we're seeing this right now. This is the last hurrah. The entire system is going to be coming down. If you notice, they're having a tougher and tougher time pushing gold down. This time, they only pushed it down a little bit. Now we're going to see it pop up once again. And it's going to be worse and worse as time goes on. This is the signal that they are losing control. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.